What's going on, guys, and welcome back to part 12 of building Twitter using UIKit and Google's Firebase. So in this part, we're going to finish the onboarding process by completing the ProfileDataFormViewController, and basically we're going to set that views and bind them to our view model. Then we're going to pass those data back to Google's Firebase to complete the process. So without further ado, let's just dive in. So first of all, I'm going to initialize a container view, and that container view should be scrollable view. So let me just type private let scroll view, and as you might guess, the name of that view is basically going to be a scroll view. So you might think of the scroll view, it's basically a container, an empty container to be exact, and this container should have some attributes. The most important one out of them, of course, is that we are able to scroll the items inside of it. So let me just initialize that. All right, so let me just type first let scroll view, and that should be equal to a UI scroll view. All right, and then scroll view dot translates auto resizing masks into constraints, set that to false so that we can use the auto layout. And then this is the really important attribute that needs to be activated. So as you might guess, there's here an attribute that says always bounce vertical, and we're going to set that to true, because if you didn't actually activate that, basically your scroll view is not going to show that it's being scrolled unless that you give that the content size of the scroll view is actually bigger than the screen. So I actually give it a room for scrolling. However, it's not going to show that it reached this end of the scroll view, and it's not going to give you the feedback that you are over scrolling this. So this is really important when you're trying to initialize a scroll view. So after this, let me just say scroll view dot keyboard dismiss mode, and that should be on drag. So that means if you are using a text view or basically a text field and you have your keyboard is shown on the screen, whenever you try to swipe up or down or basically initiate a scrolling action, this is going to basically dismiss the keyboard by default. So basically that's the behavior that we are going to implement. So return scroll view. All right. So over here, let me just set that background to a system background color, and then add the scroll view to our view. And down here, we're going to configure our constraints, and let's just create this function over here. I don't know, this is maybe the 5th or the 6th time that we have implemented this function. So private func, and then add the name of the function, the 2 brackets, and the curly braces as well. So here, we're going to set that the constraints of the layout for the scroll view to actually match the layout and fill all the screen. All right, so first of all, let me just start by hitting scroll view constraints let, and here I'm going to initialize an array in which we're going to store our constraints. So basically scroll view dot leading anchor constraints with the leading anchor of the view itself, scroll view dot trailing anchor constraints with the view trailing anchor. All right, so let me add that. So scroll view dot top anchor constraints with the top anchor of the view, so top anchor. Right, scroll view dot bottom anchor constraint with the bottom anchor of the view as well. And here, let's just activate those constraints. So scroll view constraints. So basically, yes, that's it. So afterwards, we're going to initialize some basic UI stuff, and then we're going to add those UI to the scroll view itself instead of the view itself, because the view is just the static screen that you see on the screen. However, the scroll view in which we're going to add those UI, basically we're going to be able to see them being scrolled up and down on the screen. So let me just start by initializing a simple basically title or a label. So private let, and let me see what we can call this. Maybe we can see hint label, and basically we're going to initialize that as a label. So let label is equals to a UI label, label dot translates auto resizing mask into constraints, that should be equals to false as well. And then label dot text, and that should be fill in your data, label dot font, and let me set that to a system font of size 32 and a bold weight, and then label dot text color, set that to a label so that you make sure that the label is going to be adaptive in color whenever your device isn't set in the night mode or basically a light mode. And then last but not least, let me just return that label. And over here, instead of writing view.addSubView, I'm actually going to say scrollView.addSubView. It basically has this exact method or function that we can use to implement or add another view within this view, because scroll view is at the end of the day, it's just a UI view. So scroll view.addSubView, let me just say hint label. And over here, let me just set the constraints for that as well. So hint label constraints, right, and let me set that basically in the middle of the screen. So let me say label, right, label dot center X. I believe something is missing. So yeah, hint label actually dot center X, and that should be constrained with the basically the scroll view, actually scroll view dot center X. All right, and a hint label, all right, hint label, and basically we're going to set the top anchor for this with the scroll view dot top anchor. Okay, top anchor, and then we are going to give a padding on the top of maybe 30 points. Okay, constant 30 points, yeah, that's it. And then we're going to activate those constraints as well. So ns layout activate hint label constraints. All right, so basically let me just hit build and run, and let me see what we get so far. So as you can see here, my project is being built, and I believe, yeah, build succeeded. And as you can see here inside my simulator, we get this fill in your data thing. And as you can see here, we still haven't fixed this issue where the user can actually skip this onboarding process and then go directly to the home view controller. So first of all, I just need to programmatically prevent the user from swiping down on this view controller. How we can do this? Easy. So over here inside the view.load method, we can just specify this attribute to true to prevent that. So is modal in presentation, and we can set that to true. So in order for us to be able to swipe down and dismiss this view controller, this attribute should be actually false. So whenever you see this is in presentation, and as you can see here, that is the maximum distance that we can travel using this swipe gesture. We can no longer basically dismiss that. And as you can see here, the fill in your data, we can just hit that middle of the screen and then scroll up and scroll down. And then as you can see here, we can actually scroll that, given that we haven't actually specified a content size for the scroll view. But since we are activating this this attribute over here, always bounce vertical, then you will see this slightly animation, even though there is no actual content size inside this scroll view. So let me just add the other text fields, and also add text view, which is another type of a text field in which we can actually use to do more things that we usually do inside the text fields. So for example, we can have a scrollable text view in which we can specify like a multi-line text. So let me just do that really quick. So I'm going to initialize those two text fields over here, in which we're going to receive the display name and the username for the user. So let me just do this really quick. So private let display name text field, and that should be a UI text field, right? Let text field, and that should be UI text field. Enable the auto layout attribute by setting this to false, right? So text field dot keyboard type, and then specify this maybe to, I don't know, like default for now. And then text field dot background color, set that to secondary system fill. Yes, that's the one. text field dot left view mode, and that should be set to always. So what that is, I'm gonna tell you in just a second. So text field dot left view, and set that to a UI view with a frame of CG rect of the X, Y, and width origin. So 0, 0, 20, maybe 20 as well. So basically we just need to add some padding inside this text field. And if you just made this text field without those two lines, basically you're going to see the cursor of the text field is just at the left. There's no padding on the left of the cursor as well. So this is where we specify that we actually always need a view basically that's going to be set over here inside the left view. So basically this view is just an empty space of 20 points in width, 20 points in height. We're going to set that into our text field. So there's why we are saying yes, we always want to add this frame inside of our text field. So basically we're going to always get a padding on the left, right? So here as well, I'm going to say text field dot layer dot masks to bounds, and that's going to be equal to true. Text field dot layer dot corner radius, and that should be set to 8. And basically that those two lines enable us to get that curvy cornered text field. All right, so text field dot attributed text, and then specify that to ns attributed string. And here I'm just going to say string and attributes. So basically for the string, I'm going to say display name, and for the attributes, I'm going to hit like this and enter an array of attributes. So the first attribute that I wanted to add, so ns attributed string dot key dot foreground color, and that should be UI color dot gray. And over here, let me just return this text field. I know that we have specified that text field in a prior tutorial, but I wanted to write that from scratch in order for me to be able to actually explain those two lines, because those two lines were not added in the previous one. So for the username, we're basically going to have the exact same configuration for the text field. However, we're going to change that display names to username text field. And over here, let me just start by typing as well username. All right. After this, we're going to add those two text fields inside of our scroll view. However, we just need to have some way for the user to be able to upload a picture first before even actually specifying anything regarding the username text field or the display name text field. So let me just start by coding this component as well. So over here, let me just start by typing private let avatar placeholder image view, right? And that should be a UI image view. Let me start by typing let image view, set that to a UI image view. All right, UI image view. And over here, let me start by typing image view dot translate auto resize mask into false. Okay, so image view dot clips to bounds. I'm gonna set that to true, and what that means is if the image itself is bigger than the container or the placeholder we're coding right now, it's going to be cropped off the edges of this image view. So image view dot layer dot masks to bounds should be true as well. Image view dot layer dot corner radius, set that to maybe 60 points, because I'm actually intending to make a width and a height of 120 points. So these combined, those three lines combined, should result in a circular image view. All right, and here I'm going to set the image background color, or basically the background color for this to be light gray, right? Set the image view dot image itself, and by using SF symbols, I've chosen this image. As you can see here, it says camera dot fill, and if I open SF symbol, as you can see here, this is the image I've chosen. So basically camera dot fill. I copied the name over here, and then say image view dot tint color. I'm gonna set that to gray. So basically this image is going to be with the gray color instead of the light gray for the background for the image view. And then we can use image view dot is user interaction enabled and set that to true, because actually I'm intending to allow the user to do certain actions whenever he taps on the image view itself. And last but not least, let me just return this image view. Alright, so over here after the hint label, I'm going to add a new view to the scroll view. So add subview, avatar, placeholder image view. And over here, I'm going to set the constraints for that as well. Alright, so let me first start by typing avatar placeholder image view constraints. Alright, so it's an empty array for now. And here I'm going to specify that basically the center X is going to be constrained with the scroll view dot center X. Okay. And then the avatar placeholder view height constraints, and that should be 120 as we have specified earlier, and for the width as well. So width anchor constraints to 120 points, and then we'll get the circular image view. And here, last but not least, I just want to set the top anchor for this to be constrained with basically the hint label, the bottom anchor, and I'm going to set a margin between those two views of 30 points. Over here, let me just start by typing activate avatar placeholder constraints, hit build and run. Let me see what do we get so far. And as you can see here, we can retrieve our simulator down there and it's being loaded. And yes, basically that is what we get. A camera inside of a frame, if we may say. Fill in your data whenever we scroll, all of that can be scrolled. However, if I just released my finger over here, it's just going to stay in the same place. And I believe we can just specify the image view as well. Alright, so let me just start by typing here image view dot content mode and set that to maybe aspect fit for now. And over here, let me just build and run to make sure that it is actually working. And I believe, yes, I believe it will work on the first time over here. So basically, yeah, we have a camera over here, and basically we are going to set the rest of our text fields and text views and set up their delegates as well. All right, so basically inside of here, inside the view.load method, I'm just going to add those text fields that we have specified earlier. So scroll view.add subview, display name, text field, and over here I'm just going to add this one more time. However, it's going to be the username text fields. Let's just go down there and set their constraints as well. So let me start by the display name first. So display name constraints. Right, set that array to display name dot leading anchor constraint, and that should be constrained with the view leading anchor, which is basically the very left edge of the screen in case of English, and then give that a padding maybe of 20 points. Display name dot trailing anchor constrained with the views trailing anchor, and then set the constraints back in the opposite direction basically, which is another 20 points. Display name text field top anchor, and that should be below the avatar image view, basically placeholder. So bottom anchor constrained with 40 points, and basically last but not least display name height anchor, and set the height anchor for this to be equals to 50 points. And then we're going to add the same thing with the username as well. So username text field constraints. Okay, let's set that username to leading anchor of basically, I'm going to set the constraint here actually to be the display name text field dot leading anchor. So basically I don't need to give the exact padding because this username is going to match the display name. Right, user name text field trailing anchor, that should be constrained with the display name dot trailing anchor as well. I'm gonna set the top anchor for this view as well. So basically that should be under the display name bottom anchor, and set that basically to 20 points. And we're going to set the height for this as well to be like 50 points. And basically let me just set those constraints activated. So let me just activate that and the other one as well. So username And actually, before hitting build and run, I've just discovered something that over here inside the text field, basically we have attributed text. This shouldn't be attributed text, but basically this should be attributed placeholder. And this is going to work because if you add this attributed text, I'm going to show you the difference here. Basically, this is not going to be behave as a placeholder. Whenever you tap on the text field, the text inside is going to disappear. So we have changed the display name. So whenever I tap over here, I can see that this is actually working. However, if I try to do this inside the username, we can actually append the text over here because that was not treated as a placeholder. So let me just do this here as well. So instead of attributed text, that should be attributed placeholder. Hit build and run. And as you can see here, basically both of the text fields lies correctly in their layout. And we can scroll over here, and whenever we release our finger, everything stays in the same place. So right now we just need to add another text view. It's not going to be a text field, it's actually going to be a text view in which we're going to add some of our biography over here. So let me just code that really quick. So over here, let me just go down there before the view did load and initialize this new view. So private let bio text view, and that should be a UI text view. So let text view, that should be a UI text view. Text view dot translate auto resizing max into false. And here, let me just say text view dot background color, and that should be secondary system fill. Right. Text view dot layer dot masks to bounds, set that to true. Text view dot layer dot corner radius, I'm gonna set that to 8 points. Right. So text view dot text container insets. Right. So text container inset, and basically let me just set that to init over here. And basically what that does is that it gives like something like padding inside of your text view. So basically from the top, I want to add 15 points, from the left 15 points, and from the right, or basically the bottom 15, and over here the right 15 as well. So basically let me just set that as well to have like a text view dot text. However, this is not going to be a placeholder. We're going to make that programmatically. Basically, whenever we add a new text, it's going to remove this text, or basically placeholder text, but we're going to do this by code instead. So tell the world about yourself, and here text color for the text view. Okay, text color, and I'm going to set that to gray, and basically I'm just going to return this text view. Over here, let me just add this text view here to the scroll view. So text view, basically bio text view. And over here, I'm just going to set the constraint for that component as well. So bio text view constraints, right? Set that bio text view leading anchor, and I'm going to set that basically to match the display name as well. So constraint to the display name, text field, leading anchor, bio text view dot trailing anchor dot constraints with the display name trailing anchor, and that should be actually be under the username text field. So bio text view top anchor dot constraints with the username text field bottom anchor, and set these to 20. And basically I'm just going to specify a height for this as well. So height anchor, and that should be about 150 points, and then activate those constraints down there. So activate bio text view constraints. Let me just build and run. As you can see here, basically we have the text view setup. We just need to match the font. I believe we forgot to do that, so let me just go and do that really quick. I'm going to add a new attribute over here that says text view.font. I'm going to set that basically to a system font of maybe 16. Let me just try to do this. And as you can see here, my simulator shows that yes, I believe the font matches. However, if I try to say display name over here, try to enter my name, that works okay. Username, that works okay as well. However, if I try to handle anything regarding this text view, it's actually handling the text inside of it as normal text. It's not going to be a text view. So basically, whenever I add anything over here, it just gets appended to the current text. So basically, we need to change that. So here, we're going to first deal with the delegate methods for basically this text view over here. So first, we're going to go over here inside the view load and reference our text view, or basically bio text view, and then set the delegate to be that exact controller. So Xcode is going to yell at us because this controller is not conforming to the UI text view delegate yet. However, we're going to actually do this. And as you can see, I'm going to do this inside of a new extension. So ProfileDataFormViewController, and let me set that to UI text view delegate. And over here, as you can see, the error goes away, and then we're going to have access to all of the delegates methods of the text view. All right, so basically over here, I'm going to utilize two methods out of those delegates. So the first one is going to be text view did begin editing, and basically this is the first time we're going to write anything inside of your text view. So basically a edit action has begun, and then we're going to be smart about it. So instead of actually checking about the actual placeholder, we're going to check about the color of the placeholder. So if text view dot text color, and if that is equals to gray, that means we are using a placeholder. So basically we just need to change the text view text color to be label, and then change the text inside of the text view to be an empty string. And let me just hit build and run so that you can actually see what we're getting. So as you can see here, our simulator loads, and yes, this is the tell the world about yourself. It has a gray color. So whenever we begin editing, as you can see here, we're going to set the text color to label, set the text to an empty string. This is why it disappeared. And whenever we try to do anything like this, the color is just going to be labeled, which is black in this case. And also we just need to make sure that we have actually another method. So basically we're going to use this method. So text view did end editing, and then we're going to check if the text view dot text is actually empty. So that means the user has deleted everything inside of that text view. That means we should put our placeholder back. So text view dot text, I'm going to set that to the exact string over here, tell the world about yourself. And basically let me just paste that over here, and I'm going to set the color one more time. So basically text color, and that should be gray. Let me just hit build and run so that we can demonstrate that. And yes, we can see here the tell the world about yourself. Basically whenever I did start editing, everything gets cleared. Whenever I type anything like this and end editing, maybe by going to another text field or anything, it stays the same. However, if this was empty, I just need to put it back inside the gray color and just add this, basically this tell the world about yourself thing. So let me just delete that, maybe end editing by tabbing in another username text field. And as you can see here, the tell the world about yourself is now set. And whenever I try to do this again, it's just going to disappear. All right, so we just need to add another component, which is basically going to be the submit button. So let me just code that really quick. So over here, I'm just going to initialize a new basically button. All right, so I'm going to call this private let submit button. and that should be a UI button. Okay, and maybe we can make that easier to ourselves by going to the register view controller, and we can just copy this button over here. So I'm going to copy everything inside the register view controller. Let me just go back to my button over here. I'm going to paste everything over here, and inside here I'm just going to change the label to maybe submit, and then I'm going to add this button to my view. So scroll view, let me just do that over here, scroll view dot add some view submit button, and down there let me just specify the constraints for that button as well. So let me start by adding this submit button constraint array. Right, so let's submit button constraints and set the submit button dot leading anchor to the view dot leading anchor, give that a padding of 20. Submit button dot trailing anchor dot constraint, set that to the trailing anchor. Right, so -20 as well. Submit button, right, submit button dot basically the height anchor, I'm going to set that to maybe 50 points. And here's the cool part. We're going to use a new constraint, or basically a new anchor that we haven't specified earlier in this tutorials, or basically in this series. So I'm going to set that to be submit button dot bottom anchor, and instead of using the views or the screen's bottom anchor, I'm going to use something much more better. So constraint and set that to the view dot keyboard layout guide. I'm going to set that to the top anchor, and over here I'm just going to give that like a padding top of 20 points, and then I'm going to activate this submit button constraints. Let me just hit build and run, and you will see what this actually does. All right, so the thing about making a form for a user is that basically a user is going to have to enter some data. So whenever the user is going to enter some data, basically this keyboard thing should cover most of the screen, my guess. As you can see, if we tapped on here and then hit Command K, so as you can see here, the keyboard will cover a part of that screen. Alright, so if the user has opened this and we're setting the button bottom anchor to the view, basically bottom anchor, this button is going to be like hidden by default by the keyboard because it's going to cover it. However, we have specified that the bottom anchor should be constrained with the top anchor of the keyboard over here. So this anchor is basically the top anchor of the keyboard. This is the leading anchor, this is the trailing anchor, and that is the bottom anchor of the keyboard as well. So this anchor is going to move up and down whenever you decide to show the keyboard by tapping into a text field or anything, and this should follow this keyboard. However, this state shows that the keyboard is actually not activated, so the bottom anchor of the keyboard, or basically I'm sorry, the bottom anchor of the button is going to be constrained with the safe area layout, or basically the safe area guide, which is basically roughly over here, and the other space that we have specified, which is basically 20 points in the other direction, that is it. And I believe you noticed that whenever we scrolled in our scroll view, this is going to dismiss the keyboard and this button is going to travel back to its place. However, there is a still problem that we haven't fixed yet. If the user tapped here inside the bio text field, as you can see here, the user sees nothing for the bio text field. So basically, we're going to utilize this scroll view that in case of anything has been tapped in, we're going to make a little bit scroll in the upper direction so the user will see all the information, or basically all the text view or the text fields that the user is going to utilize to provide all the information. And over here, we're going to make that logic happen by making use of this text view that begin editing and text view end editing. So we're going to use that as well with the text fields. So let me just set the text fields over here, delegates. So display name text field delegate, that should be is equals to self. Username text field delegate, that should be equal to self as well. Let me just go down there, and over here I'm just going to conform to the UI text field delegate, and as you can see here, those two errors will go right now, so yes. And over here I'm just going to say text field did begin editing, and over here text field did end editing. So basically those two functions that we're going to use to actually scroll the scroll view in their direction so that we can see all the real estate of the screen. So over here in the text field did begin editing, I'm going to say scroll view, please set your content offset to a CG point, and a CG point basically is going to be 0 direction, or basically 0 displacement in the X direction. I'm going to set that offset in the Y direction. And the Y direction, where can we get that from? Basically, it's just going to be passed along this text field. So text field dot frame dot origin dot Y. So basically, we just need to set that to the origin of Y, maybe with a little bit more of a displacement, which is basically 100 point, and set that to true. Let me just hit build and run so that we can see that in action. So we have set that to the text fields only. We just need to make that as well with the text view. So as you can see here, whenever I tap on the display name, this is going to push the display name, or basically the scroll view, inside over here on the vertical axis with the point that actually has the origin of the frame of the text field that I'm currently on, which is basically here the text field that says display name. And I'm going to decrease this displacement by 100 points because I believe that looks better. If you just remove this 100 and build and run one more time, as you can see here, whenever the simulator decides to run, and here we can say display name, and basically the scroll, or basically the content offset, is going to be set to the exact origin point of the Y anchor over here. So this is why I've added this 100 points so that we get a better looking. So instead of scrolling all the way to the origin of the frame, so this will work with the display name and the username as well. As you can see here, it's not going to be working with that as well. I just need to make sure that this is actually working with that. So over here, scroll view set content offset to a CG point, X is equals to 0, text view dot frame dot origin dot Y minus 100, set that to true as well. Right, and then wait for the simulator to show up. And here I believe everything is going to be set up. So yes, display name, username, and over here, as you can see, the text view works as well. And whenever we scroll, we are dismissing the keyboard, and we just need to dismiss the keyboard as well if we have tapped outside of those text fields as well. So let me just do this really quick. Over here, I'm going to say view dot end editing, or basically add gesture recognizer, which is going to be a UI tab gesture recognizer. Set the target to self, selector did tap to dismiss. I'm going to add this function over here. So Objective-C private func did tap to dismiss, and over here I'm going to say view.end editing and force that to true. I believe that should be working. So let me just test that. All right, as you can see here, whenever we type on any field, whenever we type outside, it's going to dismiss by default. And over here, as you might see, there is a slight bug. We have basically dismissed the keyboard. However, the scroll hasn't set to 0 yet. So let me just do that inside of the end editing. So let me just say scroll view dot set content offset, so CG point, and that should be 0, 0, true, and add that here as well inside of the text view end editing. So over here, I'm just going to add that, and I believe that will solve the bug. Right, as you can see here, the simulator is going to show up, and whenever we tap over here, tap outside, as you can see here, everything gets back to its normal position. Alright, so basically we just need to activate this as well so that we can choose a photo. So let me just start by adding this code over here. Basically I will use the new PH photo picker from Apple. So let me just do that. So over here, I'm just going to import a new module. So import photo UI. And over here, I'm just going to add a new target for our image placeholder. So avatar placeholder image, and then basically add a UI tab, or basically, yeah, UI tab gesture recognizer. Set that to self selector. I'm going to make a new function that says did tap to upload. Right. And over here, I'm going to create this function. So Objective-C private func did tap to upload. And then we are going to configure our photo picker from this function. So first of all, I'm just going to make a picker. And this picker should basically be, let me just say let picker, and that should be PH picker view controller, and that picker view controller should be initialized with some configuration. And basically, let me just start by typing var configuration, right? And that should be PH picker configuration, right? And then set the configuration. So configuration.filter, we're going to be uploading only photos. I don't need the live photos or the panoramas, screen recordings or screenshots. I only need photos. So images over here, and the configuration, for some reason we can upload more than one photo, but in my case I just need to upload a single photo. And then I'm going to pass this configuration over here, and then basically I'm just going to say picker.delegate is equals to self. So basically we're gonna use the delegate method. So whenever the user finish uploading or selecting a photo, we're going to handle this inside of this controller. And then we're going to present this picker over here normally as we do with any normal view controller. However, we just need to set our view controller to be able to conform to this PH picker view controller delegate. Let me just copy that name from here. Thank you so much, Xcode. And over here, I'm just going to create a new extension. So profile form data view controller, and set that to be able to conform to that delegate. And over here, I'm just going to add my stubs over here. So as you can see here, there is a function that says did finish picking. All right. So let me just build and run to see if that is actually working. As you can see here, basically we get the simulator. Whenever we tap on this camera, we are going to be presented by this photo picker, in which we can actually pick only one photo, as you can see here, because we have specified this. So whenever the user did finish, so basically whenever the selection count reaches the count that we have specified, which is 1 only, we're going to use this function actually to take that picture and also dismiss the picker view. So first of all, I'm just going to make this function over here. So picker dismiss, set that to true. And whenever we build and run to make sure that is working, whenever we tap on the camera and select only one entry, or basically one photo, this is going to be dismissed over here. So let me just pick up this flower photo over here, and yes, that is actually working. So over here, we just need to get the results over here. So basically, as you can see here, the results is actually array of results, because eventually we could have changed the limit of the photo picker to maybe 3 or 4. So this should be an array. So even though we know that this is only going to be a one image, we're going to loop on that array. So for result in results, thank you Xcode, we're going to say result item provider. So basically this is the class that's going to provide us with the photo and it gets it, because this item provider should be able to handle all of the kind of files like live photos, panoramas, and all that kind of stuff. So the item provider, I need it to load the object of a type UI image .self. So basically I'm loading an object. The class of this object is going to be a UI image, right? And in the completion handler, I'm going to specify here a weak self, so I don't get stuck in a retain cycle or anything like this. I'm going to retrieve the object that I get from here in the error, if there is any. All right, and over here, I'm just going to unwrap this, because I'm going to cast that to an image. As you can see here, the object over here is not yet an image. So I'm going to cast that. So let image, and that should be equals to image as, right, UI image, and set that. And over here, since we are actually looping inside a closure over here, and we need to update something on our main thread, which is basically the placeholder of the avatar. So I'm going to say dispatch queue dot main. Right, so dispatch queue, not this one, dispatch queue over here dot main dot async, and over here I'm going to reference my avatar image placeholder, and I'm going to set that to the image. Just referencing the image view itself, I'm going to say image is going to be image over here. I will build and run this project because we've been coding for so long actually, and we need to see actual results. I know this is UI intensive tutorial, but believe me, this is the easiest way for handling such cases. It's going to actually benefit you in most of your work inside of the iOS ecosystem. So as you can see here, everything looks good. Everything is handled already. The UI is not being blocked by the keyboard. And here, whenever we tap to upload a new photo, for example, I'm going to choose this one. If you hold tap on it, you're gonna see this beautiful animation. So select, and as you can see here, the photo is going to be placed inside of this. Maybe I can change the content mode of the avatar from being scale aspect fit to scale aspect fill, and whenever I try again, I believe that will look so much better. So let me just try that. So yeah, fill in your data and maybe change to this, and as you can see here, basically it gets set to our placeholder. So this is awesome. So basically this tutorial went much longer than I expected. So in the next part, we're going to connect all of these data to our view model. And basically we're going to work on that submit action so that we can actually take this information and send it back to Google's Firebase, and also the Firestore in which we're going to store our image and retrieve back a URL for that image. So that's it for this tutorial. So if you liked what you just saw, please hit that like button, consider subscribing to my channel because it will help me a lot, and I'm gonna be speechless when I find new subscribers to my channel. And if you have any questions, just leave them in the comment section down below, and I'll try to do my best to answer all of them. So once again, that was Amr. Happy coding and stay safe.